You're probably thinking, Alex, why are we talking about a laptop that was released pretty much exactly a year ago? And actually, I have more than one answer for you. First of all, I like gaming laptops, and it seems like we will not get too many new models this year, and since my time with the Lenovo Legion Pro 7i was quite short when we did our initial review in 2025, well, I simply wanted to check it out again. Secondly, this puppy right here is the top of the line config. So we are talking a 5090 here, while our review unit from last year bet on a 5080. And we'll also get laptops with Intel's Arrow Lake refresh CPU soon, and I'd like to add some data points for this one in our database, since the 5080 version was already one of the fastest overall gaming laptops in 2025, so I have high hopes for this one as well. So let us see how much this Pro 7 can improve with Nvidia's flagship mobile GPU, how it fares against the competition, and if it's still one of the best high-end gaming machines you can buy. Let's get into it. I mentioned it already, at the heart of it all, you can find Nvidia's RTX 5090, which can properly stretch its legs in the 16-inch chassis with a 175 watts power limit. And it's aided by Intel's Core Ultra 275HX, which is Team Blue's sort of high-end mainstream option that you can find in almost all of the flagship competitors. Our sample also bets on 64 gigs of RAM, which is of course upgradable with 2 SODIMM slots, and all of your games and creative projects will find a home on a 2TB SSD with a second slot available for future upgrades. Considering the spec sheet, you bet the Legion is not a budget option, but in typical Lenovo fashion, the Pro 7 has been on sale a lot throughout last year, especially the 5080 config, which would still be my recommendation unless you really want the best of the best, and money is no object at all. But yeah, I would definitely keep an eye on Lenovo's website, especially with everything that is going on with RAM, SSDs and prices in general when it comes to tech. That said, it seems like prices for the Legion have stayed relatively consistent, and in Lenovo's webshop our configuration does not seem affected by any recent price hikes. Externally, the 2025 redesign of the Pro 7i made quite some waves, and while I like it, some of you thought it was a little too gamery. While that's true, the Legion, at least in my opinion, still strikes a balance between very obviously identifying as a gaming laptop without being too over the top. But let me know what you guys think. Did the new chassis grow on you over the past 12 months, or how do we stand in general when it comes to looks here? Overall, there's nothing really to complain about the chassis itself, and while it does not feel as premium as something like a Razer Blade 16 or 18, it is up there with something like the ROG Scar 16, Alienware's Airware 51s or similar flagship laptops. If you want a bit more details, please check out our initial video from last year for a much more in-depth look at this one. As a quick refresher for everything else before we get to our performance tests, when it comes to ports, you may have to deal with the lack of Thunderbolt 5, but with 2 USB-C Thunderbolt 4s, 3 USB-As, HDMI and a network check, you should still have more than enough connection options. The 240Hz OLED is also still a feast for your eyes, with up to 1000 nits peak in HDR and solid numbers throughout all of our measurements. And when it comes to inputs, well, the keyboard is as awesome as it always is for pretty much everything that carries the Lenovo branding, and the trackpad is solid without really offering something to write home about. But what about performance, and how does the Legion compare against its 5080 sibling and against other competitors within the same performance and price category? Just as a small disclaimer before we get into it, some of our numbers in the database are from last year, so with firmware updates, driver updates and everything else that can happen over the lifespan of a laptop, things might change, so just keep that in mind when looking at our results. I mentioned it already, the 275HX on the CPU side is nothing new, and while there is quite some variance in all the laptops betting on this very silicon, it's probably not really something you would actually be able to notice in everyday life. That said, additional headroom here might prove beneficial for the 5090, especially when you need both the GPU and CPU to do some proper heavy lifting. And that's actually exactly what we are seeing. Sure, some of it might be due to driver and firmware maturity, but the Legion beats almost everything but the X3D XMG Neo 16 in Firestrike, sits atop our TimeSpy results, and even beats everything again in Port Royal. And we are not just talking the 16-inch competition here, but also something like the beastly Area 5118 from Alienware and even the Legion 9, Lenovo's very own 18-inch gaming behemoth. In games, the story changes a little bit, but the difference in Cyberpunk and in Full HD is only marginal, and even the 5080 Pro is doing fairly well against its higher-end counterpart. Naturally, the performance delta is a lot bigger in the Legion's native QHD resolution, and again, the 16-incher is right up there with the big boys. Our second reference title, Baldur's Gate, is showing a similar picture, and in 1080p we see a pretty level playing field, while the 5090 is doing its magic in QHD with some very impressive performance results. On a more subjective note, you simply do not have to worry about settings that much anymore, and I did a fair share of my Pragmata playthrough on the Legion and also spent some hours in Death Stranding 2, and especially those graphically advanced story games look simply terrific. For one, because of the OLED and its HDR capabilities, and because the 5090 easily handles even path tracing without too much of a problem. So even in Pragmata's heaviest areas, you get between 50 to 60 FPS with DLSS in quality and path tracing and maxed out settings, and adding 4x MFG, well, for a story game, you are mostly playing with a controller, and that simply put is one of the best looking games out there right now. This is as smooth as it gets, if you ask me. With Death Stranding 2, it's the same story, all maxed out, and with DLSS in quality in QHD, you already get a solid 60 FPS plus experience, and with the help of MFG, you might not quite get the full 240 Hz of the OLED, but you are getting close enough for a truly spectacular gaming experience wherever you find a place to put down the Legion. For the FPS guys among you, Fortnite, which is my competitive game of choice right now, easily allows you to take full advantage of the high native refresh rate, and in the game's performance mode in QHD and max settings, above 200 FPS aren't really a problem at all, so the Legion can definitely do it all, no matter what kind of games you're into. Without getting too much into it, with that much performance, the Pro 7 is naturally a great workstation as well, and with the X-Rite Color Manager for additional presets for the OLED and the overall computing grunt, it makes short work of our 4K timelines in Resolve, for example. Given our performance results, you're probably thinking if a 16-incher can be as fast as something like the 18-inch Area 51, it must make your ears bleed when running at full tilt. And well, the Legion is definitely audible, there's no reason to mince words here, but for what you are getting, it's actually quite alright. And while I usually stay away from the higher performance modes, unless I really need all the performance I can get, I use it a lot on the Pro 7 since it's actually not too bad. But hear for yourself and let me know what you think. Alright folks, that should be it for the Lenovo Legion Pro 7i in its highest performance configuration. And once again, what you are getting is simply put one of the fastest laptops right now, no matter the size of the chassis. Sure, you are missing out on a full metal build, no biometrics and no Thunderbolt 5, but apart from that, this puppy got it where it counts. And if you have the money to spend and want a no-compromise performance machine, well, even a year after launch, the Lenovo is tough to beat. But let me know what you think about this one, and if there's anything you got in your sights for 2026, or if you rather plan to wait for now, or if you already updated your system last year. Sound off below. Thanks a ton for watching, folks. Please leave your like and sub on your way out. My name is Alex, you have been absolutely incredible, and I cannot wait to see you all in the next one. Take care.